What is this box that we've been kind of conditioned into and indoctrinated into that has trapped us into this very sort of limited way of operating? Because I believe that we have huge potential, and the science shows that we have huge potential, and we're only tapping into just a like itty-bitty fraction of that potential that's within us. You know, we're perceiving 1% of the physical reality around us. We're using 3% of our DNA to actively code for proteins, and we're only using 10% of our brain capacity for conscious processing and conscious, activities. And all the rest of that potential, which is the large majority, is like untapped for most people. And yet it's not there for no reason. Like, we have huge potential to grow into. So what is this old box? Well, it's the mechanical thinking. The mechanical way of thinking, the mechanistic way of thinking is limited. It's linear. It's based on just pure logic and material physical worldview. And it goes back to the Newtonian paradigm of Newtonian physics, which is several hundred years old. And so I'm going to just briefly go through what are those basic principles that the Newtonian paradigm was built on. Because Newtonian paradigm, now, I want to credit him, number one, because Isaac Newton actually was an alchemist. And here at the Alchemy Conference, and we know this, but in science, they kind of pull the wool over your eyes, and they don't let you really in on this idea that he was an alchemist, and he was actually trying to understand the mind of God rather than take God out of the equation. And he had hundreds of volumes of journals on alchemy. and so the work that he brought through at that time was revolutionary. It kicked off major revolution, and from it came the Industrial Revolution. From it came a lot of technologies that we have today. From it have come many, many good things. And it took us out of the superstition era and into, like, we can really understand this world, and we can also learn how to harness these forces that are available to us. And yet we are now at a point where we have grown beyond it, and it is limiting us. And so that old box is what we need to get out of. So number one, it's reductionistic. Reductionistic meaning we can reduce a whole down to its parts. So for example, if we want to know what a human is, we can say, okay, well, there's the brain, and what does the brain do? And here's the heart, and what does the heart do? And here's the liver, and what does the liver do? And we can kind of separate all the little pieces out and understand what they do at their individual levels, and then all of a sudden we think we know what a human is. Right? So it's reductionism. We're kind of reducing things down to a complex system can be reduced to its parts. That's number one idea. Number two is determinism. Determinism is like everything kind of runs on clockwork. There's formulas. There's basic principles that give precise, if you have precise initial conditions, you know where something starts and its initial momentum, for example, then you can calculate its entire future, theoretically, right? So that determinism is like everything is working like clockwork. And if there was some all-seeing eye that knew the initial conditions of every particle in the universe, theoretically, according to this model, it would know the entire future of the universe. So there's no free will in that. There's no conscious choice. There's no room for something new to come in to change that. And then the third is separatism. So separatism says that these different objects have boundaries, and they are not connected. If they do not share the same boundary space, then they are not connected. They are separate from one another. And therefore, we are isolated in the universe. We are separate from the stars. They don't affect us. We're separate from each other. And that separatism has led to, a natural evolution of that is Darwinian theory, survival of the fittest. If we're separate, then there's something to distrust. There's something to fear. There's something to struggle against. Right? So that survival of the fittest and the competition that comes from it, these are all based on this paradigm of separatism. And then the fourth is that it is a real materialistic world, right? So realism, meaning you can only trust what you can sense with your 5 physical senses. I have to see it, I have to hear it, I have to taste it, smell it, touch it, I have to experiment on it. It must be physical and material and something I can, really do an experiment with, or it doesn't exist, right? So that is, kind of taking things to an extreme and saying that the only thing that is real is the physical, and consciousness and spirit and all that is just, in your imagination. It doesn't really exist. Or they would just reduce it to a biochemical process, which we still have a lot of scientists today trying to do. So, guess what? None of this is actually true. Whoops. I went to the wrong slide. So, I'm ready to shatter the box before I even tell you the secret. None of this is true. So, okay, this is my calcination slide. We are at the Alchemy Conference, so the first step of transformation is to completely shatter the old form, the old box, the old structure. Break it apart and break it into pieces.